Started by two brothers in 2010 with $15,000 and a dream of building the best fire pit possible, Solo Brands sold over $500 million worth of product in 2022. How did they accomplish this remarkable, profitable growth in such a short period of time against the triple threats of a pandemic, challenging economy, and rapidly changing customer preferences? Well, let's find out, shall we? Ladies and gentlemen, shall we welcome to stage the CEO of Solo Brands, John Merris, and Phoebe Bain, the senior reporter at Ad Age.
All right, hello. Thank you guys so much for being here with us. Would love to jump right into it because I know that we, don't have a ton of time here. But Solo Brands, for those, I'm sure everyone knows what it is, but for those that don't, I would love for you to tell me sort of A, the origin story of the company, and then B, your origin story with the company.
All right. Well, first off, I think that Allan just said we did it perfectly. Were those his words?
Quickly.
Quickly. We did it quickly. I thought he said perfectly, which is even better. So
totally,
that's the key takeaway. So it's a little bit tricky to talk about the origin story because Solo Brands is really multiple brands, right? Solo Stove being the anchor brand, but then in 2021, the acquisition of Oru Kayak and Chubbies. Most recently, we acquired another brand. So we really have 5 brands now inside of Solo Brands, but Solo Brands was created in 2021 ahead of our IPO. I joined Solo Stove as the CEO in 2018. We were a tiny little business. I was the 7th employee. We were about 11 million of revenue at the time, and we had really big hopes and dreams. And we ended up ending 18 at 16 million of revenue, and then we went from 16 to 40 to 130 to 360 over the next 3-year period, and then acquired those 3 brands and then climbed up over 500 last year. So it's been a pretty wild ride from 7 employees to well over 300 employees, and from 1 brand to 5 brands, and from 11 million of revenue to over 500 million of revenue. But it's been a ton of fun.
So you noted that you said, pre-IPO, were you part of the decision-making process to go public? Because I know that's been an interesting journey for a lot of other different types of
Yeah, some would
brands.
Blame me for that decision. Yes, it was ultimately the call we made in early 21 to go public in October. And
do you feel like it was a good call? Like, why did you make that decision?
Yeah, the markets have been awesome for the last 18 months, especially D2C businesses. It was the right call, I think, for our business. I wouldn't go back. I don't really live with regrets. It's been a great learning experience. It's forced us to professionalize our business and become more mature and make good decisions from a stability standpoint and from a foundation standpoint for the company overall. I don't think that there's one way to win. So this is the way we're going to go about winning. But I think that you can go it either way, private or public.
Makes sense. So you mentioned you IPO coming out of the pandemic, correct?
We did, yeah, October 28th, 2021.
So what was the pandemic like for you all?
The pandemic was crazy. Everybody, I think, went through the wave of emotions in March. I remember March of 2020, and it was like, all right, like draw all the cash you can off of your lines, like hunker down, it's gonna get crazy. And then within like 3 weeks, it was, holy smokes, like call every manufacturer you have and see how much they can make. And so we spent most of the pandemic supply planning versus demand planning. So it was more how much can we make and how can we lean into the demand that we were seeing. So we had a lot of supply chain challenges. We had made some fortunate moves in 18, 19 ahead of that. We had expanded our supplier base. We had set up direct carrier contracts with ocean freight carriers. We had also taken on all of our own fulfillment, so we weren't using 3PLs. And these kind of fortuitous moves, which maybe we'll get into as we go through the discussion and talk about how you drive profitable growth in D2C especially, but also wholesale, how those moves not only helped us through the pandemic, but really drove immense amounts of profitability during that time.
So let's talk about that right now. At what point did you guys become profitable?
So we've been profitable since the very first year. So Allan mentioned we were founded in a garage with 15 grand. And I'm speaking obviously in the earlier days of Solo Stove. Obviously, by the time Solo Stove acquired the other brands, they were all profitable. They each kind of have their own story of fundraising and being profitable. But Solo Stove was founded with 15 grand in the garage, and in its very first year was actually quite profitable. Their whole mentality was the only way we can get more inventory is if we sell the inventory we have. So that first $15,000 was spent on a batch of inventory. They built the website themselves. They spent zero money on ads in the first year. They would just go into chat rooms and basically join these forums and start talking about how cool this new hiking stove was that they had found. And then they would see like 10 sales come through the site and be like, yes, you know, it worked. We did it. And so that first year was great. They continued to reinvest into the business. And really no capital or debt was ever taken out of the business at all until the founders needed liquidity.
Absolutely. So I know that, you know, with direct consumer brands in particular, profitability is sort of a new concept and a new thing that they need. What do you think has made that the case? Like, why is there an increased focus on profitability for direct consumer brands right now in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for the last decade, businesses have been, especially direct to consumer businesses, but I think all business, it was really easy to do business the last decade up until a couple of years ago and maybe even a year ago. And one of the reasons is because capital was really easy to come by. Debt was basically free. You almost paid 0% interest rate to go get debt. And it's not hard to win when you can basically get money anytime you need it and it doesn't cost you much to get it. I think that what's pretty interesting and unique, I remember when we were going public, you know, there were a lot of, I'm not going to name names up here because that wouldn't be kind, but there were a lot of direct-to-consumer businesses that were going public in 2021. It was the largest year of retail or consumer-based IPOs ever in a year in the history of the New York Stock Exchange. So like over 100 years. And I remember like the headlines, and it was like, proving out DTC and chasing growth at all costs and all these different headlines, and nobody was generating profits. I just remember being freaked out like, man, when this thing turns and you can't get debt for free and fundraising gets hard, these businesses that still aren't making a profit are gonna have a really hard time turning that corner because it's not gonna get easier when that changes. And I think for us, we were already so profitable leaning into it that we knew that we could weather a storm even if profitability went from, you know, whatever it was. And I remember, I think just before our IPO, we were like over 30% EBITDA margins in our business. And so, you know, we had a lot of room to be able to kind of absorb some of the pain that came whenever, you know, cost of capital went up.
Totally. So in the current market, I feel like fewer and fewer brands have, especially D2C brands, have that amount of room. So do you have any like tactics, tips and tricks to, you know, maintaining or even starting for the first time to be profitable in a market like this?
A lot of people here that I've talked to, I'm sorry for the repetition, I preach this all the time, but it's really not that complicated to be profitable. You just take your COGS, which is your cost of goods sold, and your CAC, which is your customer acquisition cost, and you make sure you sell your product for more than those two things combined. If you do that, you're profitable. If you don't, you're not profitable. Like, it's just really that simple.
But easier said than done.
We all chuckle, and some say easier said than done, but I think that it's truly, it takes discipline to do it because there are easier ways to grow, but they're not always super profitable. But the two things that I'll focus on really from a tactical standpoint, which is probably what most of you really care about, because what I just said is pretty obvious, and hopefully everybody in here already knew that, is there are specific things that you can do related to customer acquisition costs and related to COGS in order to make it easier, right? Back to your easier said than done. And I would say in direct to consumer specifically, but even as we've expanded to wholesale, a direct relationship with your customer and getting customers obsessed about your brand and talking to friends and family members about your products is the easiest and fastest way, in my opinion, delivering an exceptional customer experience, whether through product or otherwise, so that they talk about your brand and get other people buying it without you having to spend advertising dollars. So today, 45% of our new customers come from word of mouth. And we're pretty big. Like it's easy to do that when you're small. And a lot of people were like, well, you're gonna get to a point where that goes away. And it just hasn't happened. And I think the other one is retention. So again, if referral is massive, and we've maintained over 40%. The other one that's been big for us, when I joined the business, about 18% of our customers were repeat customers that were coming back. Today, 60% of our business is repeat. So again, 60% repeat, 40% new. Of the 40% new, 45% of that's coming from referral. And most of that business doesn't cost us anything. We don't have to spend a lot of advertising dollars to get that revenue. And so as customer acquisition costs for digital are going up, we can spend more for that remaining portion of our business and maintain the same customer acquisition costs because our referral business and our retention is going up.
Can you explain that a little bit more? The customer acquisition costs part.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, let's just say that you become a lover. We were talking about Chubbies before. Really good content, right? You're probably not the actual customer of the product or the wearer of the product, but maybe you're buying it for a boyfriend or a friend or whatever it might be, right? And if you fall in love with that brand, even if you're not the user of that brand, and you go and tell your friend about the brand and they buy a pair of swim trunks from Chubbies, we got that revenue without having to spend $1, right? We may have marketed to you, maybe that's how you found us, but now we just got a second sale without having to pay any advertising dollars for it. And then the same with retention. If we're getting a repeat purchase, most of that is coming from either social media or organic social media, or it's coming from email or SMS. So if we're sending an email or we're sending an SMS message, very low cost, and we're driving more revenue versus having to spend advertising dollars on Facebook or TikTok or Google or whatever linear TV.
So you guys have an interesting business model because it's a bunch of D2C brands all in the one Solo Brands umbrella. Why do you think that is a model that more people are adopting these days? Like I know that Pattern Brands is somewhat similar, a bunch of D2Cs under one umbrella. Mm-hmm. Why is that a model that works?
Yeah, and just other companies that have put a lot of brands together. I think if you go into the public markets, VF's done it, Vista Outdoors has done it, Helena Troy has done it. I think that there's something attractive, at least for us. And I don't believe there's one way to win. So I think that we could have stayed it alone and we could have just stuck with Solo Stove and continued to build that business. What we're really excited about is being able to leverage two things. First, our operations capabilities. So I talked about bringing all of well, maybe I didn't talk about that with this group, but we took just before the pandemic, we decided to insource all of our fulfillment. So we don't use a 3PL to ship our products. So it's been a huge unlock for us. We have over 1 million square feet now of warehouse and fulfillment space, and we ship all orders that are received on our website local by 5 p.m. the same day. So you're going to get your product within a day or 2 days from one of our 3 warehouses in the US. And if you live in Europe, very similar experience since we launched international. We did that for the customer experience because what we found is that we could actually make lovers of the brand just by delivering the right product on time. It turns out that we were way more profitable bringing that in-house. So as we acquire other brands and we take them off of their 3PL and roll them into our warehouse, we can take a business that's 15% EBITDA margin to 20% like that without changing anything else in their business, just who does the fulfillment, us versus a third party. So that's the first one. And then I think the second one is our ability to take our expertise around direct-to-consumer execution and help brands scale much faster. So we've got a good playbook. We have some success, obviously scaling Solo Stove from 11 million of revenue in 2018 or 16 million at the end of 18 to over 360 million just 3 or 4 years later. We can take that and now apply that playbook to other brands.
Speaking of acquiring new brands, you just did this. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so about a month ago, maybe 2 now, we acquired a brand called TerraFlame, which is an awesome company. The tagline you need to remember on TerraFlame is s'mores indoors. Really easy. Everybody loves a good s'more. The problem is that a large population of the country lives in urban areas, so it's hard to do s'mores because you might not have the space. And then a big portion of the population, I know right now in Texas where I live, it's like 111 degrees. Nobody wants to do a s'mores like outside right now. But being able to be inside in air conditioning in the summer or in the dead of winter up north, being able to do s'mores indoors. So we're super excited. Solo Stoves wanted to bring fire inside for a super long time, and we were able to find that brand. So
it's interesting because they're two different brands. They're not necessarily competitors, but they are very much in a similar category. What's the plan to kind of like differentiate in the marketing or branding strategies there going forward, or just as you continue to build out those two brands?
They're going to end up integrating. So if you go to TerraFlame's website now, it already says TerraFlame by Solo Stove. I think over the next several months, maybe a year, you'll start seeing it really kind of merge together to where it ends up being just one entity. It'll be Solo Stove, and Terra or TerraFlame will end up being a product line within the Solo Stove.
Amazing. I have a couple questions for you about just like the broader direct-to-consumer ecosystem right now. Solo's ticker on the stock exchange is D2C. How did that happen? What's that story?
Yeah, hindsight's 2020. In 2021, DTC ticker was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe nobody has this ticker. This is insane. We're going to get the ticker. And actually, that was the feedback from everyone on the street as well. And then 2022 hit, and it was like, dude, why is your ticker DTC? You guys need to get rid of that. So it's funny how that splits up. But in retrospect, I like it. And the reason I like it is because it goes back to what I was mentioning earlier around our direct relationship with the customer and how valid and important that has been to our entire growth story. If I go through our product innovation roadmap, just that alone, forgetting about the in-source fulfillment, the in-source marketing, not using agencies, just product development, every product that we have launched has been influenced by or advised by our customers to go and develop. Every single one, including, by the way, the Solo Stove Bonfire Fire Pit, which is still our top SKU, #1 sellers. The founders thought that product would never sell. They were like, who would buy a big hunk of metal? We were a hiking, camping stove business prior to the fire pit in 2016. So our customers have really made all the difference for our business. And I think, even when we IPO'd on the New York Stock Exchange, we had a banner that said, to our customers, this one's for you, because it truly was all about, and still is, all about our customers. And ultimately, our goal was to be able to pay homage to that and even give our customers access to become shareholders of the business. Like that was one of the motivations of going public, because our customers were so instrumental in us getting there.
Absolutely. So I know that the definition of direct-to-consumer has changed a lot over these past couple of years. How do you currently define it?
Yeah, so when we think direct to consumer, it's really direct to consumer from a relationship standpoint. We want to own the relationship, but we also want to be available to our customers where they are and what's most convenient to them. Again, if we really truly care about them, it doesn't matter whether they buy the product at Dick's Sporting Goods or in Costco or at Academy or Shields, Ace Hardware, all incredible retail partners to us. And so we've built an engine now where still 80% of our business has been driven through our .com channels. So we still have the vast majority directly one-to-one with them, but we also have gone from 92% direct-to-consumer to 80% over the last year and a half. And that move has primarily been to answer the call from our customers saying, hey, it's Friday morning, like I want to go pick it up for a party I have tonight or a wedding gift that I'm going to tonight. And if they buy it online on our site, they still have to wait a day or so to get it. And so this is a way that we can really be where our customers need us to be and want us to be in real time.
How do you expect that definition to kind of evolve as you go forward? I mean, think about 2020, what the definition of direct-to-consumer was, or even when all those brands that you were talking about were IPOing. It's changed every year. It feels like it changes a lot. So what are sort of your predictions for the category as a whole?
I think it's exactly what we're kind of alluding to, which is I think that the definition is going to evolve, or what it's going to mean behind direct-to-consumer is relationship-oriented. What are you doing to maintain and establish strong relationships with your customers, regardless of the channel you sell in? And recognizing that DTC is just a channel, wholesale is another channel, marketplace is a channel. Those are just places that you sell, but your relationship with the customer should be strengthened no matter where they are. So we've done things, for instance, with retail to pay homage to our relationship, direct to the consumer relationship history of putting things in, for instance, in the packaging, being very SKU selective with what we put into wholesale accounts so that customers, retailers don't have unlimited space. They can't carry all of our SKUs anyway. They don't have the room for it. And so they're going to carry our main foundational line items like a Solis of Bonfire as an example. But inside, there might be an insert that drives the customer back to our site to buy the accessory that makes that product even better when they use it for the first or second or third time. So we are being intentional about that relationship. But I think that as we look out 2, 3, 4 years from now, direct-to-consumers, the meaning behind direct-to-consumer is going to be relationship-oriented, not channel-oriented. I think that that's the big shift that you're going to start seeing.
Absolutely. I know we only have a minute left, but any advice that you could give to either direct-to-consumer founders, operators, marketers, all of the above?
Yeah, at the end of the day, if we're just talking about customer acquisition costs, I don't want to get too preachy here, but if we're just talking about customer acquisition costs, the easiest way to drive customer acquisition costs down or to at least sustain them in an environment where they're rising is list growth and more traffic and list growth. And the way that you do that is by delivering value to your prospects and your customers. And the best way to deliver great value to your customers is to create great content. We are consumers of content everywhere we go. So create amazing content, increase your list growth, increase your traffic, and ultimately you will be able to drive growth in your business, and you'll be able to keep customer acquisition costs at bay.
I think that's a great thing to end on. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me, and thanks to all of you for listening.